In this video, I want to talk about some of my experiences from being a software consultant for the last 4 years, as well as give some tips and advice from things that I have learned during this time. Hi, welcome. If you don't know me, my name is Gwen, and I am a software developer and consultant, and I also run this channel, Faraday Academy, where I talk about lots of different things going on in the coding world, and I also do programming tutorials, and then I have a Twitch channel, Faraday Academy, where I do actual coding live streams. So be sure to subscribe to this channel if you like that type of content, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So first I want to start off with a little bit of my background. Now, if you have seen some of my other videos, like my video about how I became a developer, and also my video about all of my different software development jobs that I have had, you have heard me talk about my different jobs that I've taken as a consultant and some of the other projects that I've worked on. And I just want to give a brief overview of that here. So I was a freelancer before this time. So back, I would say from 2010 to about 2014, 2015, I did many freelance side projects doing many different things, not just in software, but I was basically a side hustle freelancer fanatic. That was how I made a lot of my money at some points, was doing websites, some design work for people on very specific things. I'm not a designer, but I did menus and some other things that I just knew how to do. And I pretty much always had some kind of hustle going on, I guess. And basically, I finally got myself together enough to concentrate enough time, learn how to code enough to become a professional developer. I got my first dev job in 2015, and 2016 was my first software consulting job. So since 2016, and for over 4 years now, I've been doing software consulting. Sometimes it was a solo project that I was working on directly for a company. Sometimes I was doing staff augmentation. I've worked for a few different consulting agencies that hired me out to other companies to work on specific projects. I've worked on greenfield projects, which are like brand new, fresh projects that we get to start, and on brownfield projects where I had to go in and make updates, changes, or add features to old projects or to old code bases. And here are some of the tips and recommendations from things that I have learned. One of the most important things that you need to think about from the beginning is what services are you going to offer clients, or what are you going to be selling to people? Now, as a software consultant, people are hiring you not just to do a job or to be a coder. They're specifically hiring you as an expert who is going to be able to advise them on the direction of their software and can come in, kind of hit the ground running from the start. To be able to do that, you can't just call yourself a software developer and take any project that goes along. You are not going to be able to be an expert in everything. So you're going to have to specialize and figure out what services are you going to offer, what fields are you going to work in. Let's say you pick your stack, which is you work on Vue.js front ends and Django backends. Kind of specific, but that's mostly what I do, so I'm just giving this example. Then with that stack, you're going to have to spend a lot of time researching, keeping your skills current, practicing, becoming an expert in those things, and then be able to market yourself as an expert in those things by speaking, by creating content, writing articles, having a blog. You have to present yourself as an expert in those specific areas, and that is what is going to lead to clients wanting to hire you and paying you a consultant fee as an expert in that area. Now, your niche is probably going to depend on your current experience. Let's say you've worked on mobile apps in the past, you're probably going to want to niche down on those, but it can also be aligned with your future goals. For example, I have a goal of working more in blockchain in the future. Even though right now I make most of my money from web development, I have taken a couple blockchain projects and I'm slowly integrating those more into my consulting, into the projects that I take, into the meetings that I have and take with clients and potential future clients. But anything outside of those areas where my current skill set and my future goals are, I just turn down any project. Even if it's similar to what I already do, but it's something I don't want to do. For example, I've been offered some work with Angular development. And right now, I feel way more comfortable doing Vue.js development, even doing React development, but Angular development, it would take me too many hours to get back up to speed on Angular development, learn the current version of Angular that's out right now, become an expert at that to be able to help a client with it. So even though I know JavaScript well and I know web development well, using a different framework, it's just not worth it for me at that time. And it's outside of the expert services that I am offering to clients right now. So I don't even want to go there, even though maybe some of the projects pay well. It's just not worth my time and effort. It doesn't align with what I want to do right now. Now, the second thing a lot of people ask with software consulting or about software consulting is, how much do I charge? And it's not really a black or white answer because there are so many variables. And that's why a lot of people just won't tell you how much they get or how much they charge in software consulting. It really depends on the type of projects you are taking on, what stack you are working in. You know, all these things have different rates, and different types of companies also have different expectations of how much they will pay you for your services. On top of that, the type of work and effort that you are going to have to put in personally. For example, if they are hiring you to help out with a team that is already there and has a project manager and some professional developers already in kind of a well-oiled software system, or are they hiring you to lead a team and hire people under you and train those people on the software that you are architecting? Those are two totally different scopes, two totally different levels of responsibility, and the latter is definitely compensated more than just working on part of a team that already exists and is functioning well. To know how much to charge a client, you have to understand what the client is paying you for. They are paying you for your expertise. You are not just an hourly employee clocking in, clocking out. They're paying you for your knowledge and expertise going in, as well as for using the most creative, productive hours of your day, of your focus time, to work on furthering their company and their product. So you can't just think of it as an hourly consulting wage. How much is your creative energy in a day worth? It's very valuable. And if you pile on that the expertise you already have and all of your years of practice in creative problem solving, it's even more valuable. So don't just think of it as an hourly wage. On top of that, you have to consider that because you're a consultant, you're contracting with the company. Unless you're working for a consulting agency, then sometimes you're a full-time employee with the consulting agency and they are paying taxes for you and taking care of some other fees and things. But if you are working for yourself as an independent consultant, you have to factor in taxes, fees, any business costs that you have, any extra costs. You have to factor in the number of non-billable hours that you can't charge for when you're factoring in your billable hours, because you are not going to get 100% productivity, 100% billable hours in your day. It's just not possible. I remember my first job as a software consultant back in 2016, when I first saw how much the company was billing the client for my work. I was really shocked because I couldn't believe that a company would want to pay that much for my services. But then come to find out later on, that was pretty standard. And that seemed to be average for what companies would bill for your work. And you know what? The client was also very happy with my work and very happy with paying that much as an hourly fee. And that's how I learned that I shouldn't undervalue my services or thinking, wow, I'm billing too much. No, because I'm billing for much more than an hourly wage, as I said before. Now, if you really want more information about how much to charge a client, one thing that really helped me was talking to other consultants in my area and at conferences that I went to. And in one-on-one conversations, a lot of times they would give me information and a breakdown and details about what they billed for, how much they charged, which clients, what kind of services you could get this much for. And that was what really gave me kind of a broad understanding of how much I could charge for specific services and how much I should charge for AWS development versus web development and so on. Another question that a lot of people have about software consulting is what hours are non-billable and what hours can you charge for? And one thing I want to say here is that you should bill for every hour that you work for them. You shouldn't think that you're charging too much or that you're going too slow. No, if you are working on the project, you should be billing for that hour. That includes onboarding, that includes getting up to speed with the client's repository, code base, ecosystem. That includes all of the time that it takes you to do all of that. As long as it is focused, dedicated time that you are just spending working on the client project. Now, if the client's apps or tools or something takes a long time to install, and all I have to do is clone or install or do some kind of setup work and then leave my computer as it's working, I actually don't bill for that specific time because I'm able to go do something else. But for the most part, I bill for all the time that it takes me to set up, onboard, get up to speed, all of that. Now, learning time is generally not billed because a client is, again, hiring you as an expert. So they expect you to come in as an expert. For example, if a client hires me as a Vue.js developer, I am not going to bill them for 10 hours of Vue.js study time or for upgrading my knowledge from Vue 2 to Vue 3. No, as a Vue.js expert, I need to know that. And if I don't know it, I need to learn it on my own time, and I shouldn't be billing a client for that. The same with if I'm hired for a Django app. Then the client expects me to know not only Django, but also Python going into the project, and I should not be billing the client for me having to get up to speed on things that I should already know going into the project. So when is it okay to charge for learning time? Now, it's okay to charge for learning time. In fact, I encourage you to charge for learning time if the company is using a highly specific tool that is either unique to the company or fairly niche, and it might not be expected of you to know that particular tool going in. Now, you can always tell the client, hey, I need to get up to speed on this tool if I'm going to take this job, so I'm going to charge you for this many hours to get up to speed on that tool or a technology or language or framework or whatever it is. And the other case where I think it's okay to charge the client for learning time is if they change the requirements or expectations of a project after you have already signed for the project, started working on it, and then the client says, hey, I need you to actually do this even though I didn't include it in the original requirements. Then, since you didn't know that you would need to know that technology going into the project, then it's completely valid for you to bill the client for the time it takes you to get up to speed on that so you can continue working on their project or make the kind of changes that the client wants. Now, another thing that clients sometimes do is ask you to drive to someplace, whatever location, or they might fly you to someplace, whatever location. Now, whether this is for an initial meet and greet interview or for actually meeting with the client, demoing a project, meeting the team, or whatever, this should be the client's responsibility to pay. And I really don't see any exceptions to this. If the client is the one inviting you somewhere or telling you that you need to be somewhere, then it's their responsibility to pay for your trip, for your travel expenses, for your hotel or whatever accommodations, for the food, and to compensate you for your time that you spend on the trip where you can't do other work, obviously, because the client is taking all of that time out of your schedule. So they should be paying for all of that, and you should be billing them for your regular consulting fee while you are there. Obviously not for 24 hours a day, but for so many hours a day, however many hours you are meeting and working on client work while you are there. Now, for my general billable hours, when do I start the billing timer? So before I start the billing timer, I make sure I have everything set up and ready to go. First of all, I plan my work blocks in my calendar in advance so I know when I'm going to be working on which client project and for how long. Generally, I try to make these blocks at the very minimum 2 hours, but generally 3 to 5 hours long. If it's going to be more than 5 hours, then I at least plan an hour off because I know mentally I'm not going to be able to focus for that long on the client project and work appropriately. Now, I don't just have the time planned, but also I prepare my computer. I block distractions. I open up all of the client tools and code bases and everything else that I need to open. Now, I use Alfred 4 for this, which is a piece of software for Mac that helps with automation. So I can run one command on my computer and I have every piece of software, code base, web browser, etc., everything to do with that project open automatically with just one command from the Alfred search box, which is so convenient when I'm working on all these different projects. So I don't have to expend any mental energy thinking, oh, what code base do I need to open right now? Where do I need to go? No, it's just one command and then everything is open and running. I close everything else on my computer. I put my phone on silent and out of reach of me, so I'm not distracted by that. And then I also generally make sure I've eaten, that I'm not going to get hungry in the next hour, and then I have water, and if it's the morning, I might have coffee and everything right next to me when I start. So that way I know I'm not going to get up, get distracted, start mind wandering or anything like that. And then as soon as I start working on the project, that's when my billing timer starts. Because again, the client is paying me for my focused attention and time. And I can't really ethically bill them for time that I'm not spending focusing on the project, unless they are paying me some kind of fee to be on call if their system goes down or something like that. Aside from that, I make sure I get up every hour. So with my Apple Watch, it's really nice and convenient. I just have it set to vibrate on my wrist every hour. And you don't need a watch for that. You can have some kind of other timer or something. But I've realized that for myself, I get so into my coding project that sometimes I just won't get up for hours and hours, and it's really not healthy. So I try to at least stand up every hour, and for some reason, my wrist vibrating and being really annoying helps me just to take a step back and realize, okay, I need to stand up and walk around. And generally, especially during quarantine, I'll just pace back and forth and I'll still be thinking about the client project. So it's not a jarring break from mentally working on the client project or anything. I'm still thinking about it, trying to problem solve for 60 seconds or 2 or 3 minutes, however long I'm walking around for. Now, billable time isn't just coding time either. It's also time that I'm spending planning, time that I'm spending, like I said, pacing around, thinking about the project, time that I'm spending at the grease board trying to solve a problem, rubber ducking about the project, just anything to do with building the application for the client, solving problems for them, anything to do with the project that they are paying me for. So, how to track your hours. Now, I know a lot of developers don't like to track their hours, and I generally agree that it's a waste of time to track your hours if you are a salaried employee. And it's generally hard to figure out how much time you spent on one ticket versus the other, versus helping your teammate, versus, doing so many other things. A lot of times it's used by companies as a tool for micromanagement and to nitpick about how many hours you're spending on this or that. And sometimes it's even used as a tool to try to kind of shame people or push people to work past the hours that they are paid for because they are salaried and they don't have to get overtime for the extra hours that they work. But as a consultant, if you are billing hourly, and by the way, as a consultant, I think hourly billing is the best way to do it, unless you are doing a very small research project or something like that for a company. I think hourly billing is definitely the best way to go. And I'm not going to get into my thoughts on hourly billing versus project-based billing, but I have a whole detailed explanation of why I think that way. And if you want me to make a video about that, then leave it in the comments below. I've been thinking about making a video on that topic, and maybe I will in the future. As a software consultant, it's extremely important to track your hours properly and to time your hours to know how many hours you spent doing what. Now, one thing that I've been using to do this is keeping a log every single day. I always have a task management board, whether provided by the client or one that I've made myself, broken down into epics or large tasks, and then each of those broken down into smaller tasks. And then I take each one of those tasks and convert them into step-by-step to-do items as much as I can. And then I put them onto my weekly next action list. Now, from when I start working on Monday, I have this list of all the next actions that I need to take on my way to completing this project. So I go through these actions or to-do items one at a time, try to finish as many as I can every day. And then when I stop consulting for the day, I go back to that list, and right above my to-dos, I write a couple bullet points of everything that I did that day, what I finished, what I was working on, what I ended up stopping on so I know where to pick up the next day. And then I look at my to-do items. I make sure everything that I have already done is either checked off or removed from the list. And then I make a new header for the next day. So after Monday, I'll write Tuesday, and then all of the to-do items will be under Tuesday. So on Tuesday, I can see where I left off on Monday and then pick up with what I have to do next for the project. And I do the same thing every day. And then at the end of the week, I reassess where I am at with all of the to-do items. If I need more to-do items, I pull them from tasks on the project board, put them into my next actions list, and then I add up all of my hours as well as the explanation for those hours each day and put them into an hour tracking sheet for the client to see where I spent my time, and then I update my invoice. Generally, I will bill every other week or every month for my hours, but I still like to update my hours every week so that I am prepared for the next billing cycle and so that I make sure everything is written down while it is fresh in my head. Now, in the past, and especially when I first started consulting, I was very, very bad at keeping track of my hours, and I did get in trouble for it at one company that I worked for, and that's when I realized that I needed a new system, especially if I was going to continue to consult as I liked to do. I couldn't just keep being disorganized and doing whatever I want and just writing code because I just thought, hey, I'm getting everything done. Why does it matter if I'm exact with my hours or if I just kind of estimate? No, it needs to be as precise as possible with an explanation for the hours. Otherwise, you really don't look like the expert and professional that you are making yourself out to be for the client. Let's talk about client communication. So every client is a little bit different, and also different types of companies are different in how they expect you to communicate with them. So first of all, tech companies are usually pretty easy to communicate for us as software developers. We speak the same language. They're used to writing software already. They have apps like Slack and good communication tools for software developers. And they are also usually reviewing your code as a consultant. So you'll be pushing your code every so often, making PRs, and they will be able to review them and see the quality of your code firsthand. Now, for these types of clients, I generally try to keep them updated in Slack every week or so. And more often than that, I will update the project manager or whoever is in charge of the project. And sometimes that is almost daily. I will give them an update on where I am at, any problems that I've been having, any help that I need, anywhere that I have questions, or if I think that something can be improved in their system and I want to run it by somebody. I just try to keep the project manager very updated and aware because he is usually also the liaison talking to the management about my work. So that's always a happy place for me when I get to work for a consulting company that provides me with a project manager. That is really awesome. And then they will provide tasks usually and stuff like that. And that takes a real load off of me so I can just focus on working on the actual software. Now, non-technical clients are usually a bit harder because they will not be reviewing your code and they want to see visual things and progress all the time. And some of them even have not communicated with me for weeks at a time, and then they just kind of say, hey, how's it going? Kind of very relaxed atmosphere because they have no idea what's going on in the software or how long it takes for us to build or for the creative process to work. So one thing I learned over the last couple years is that for a client who doesn't communicate very well or for a non-technical client, it's really important for me to have a scheduled update for them and a scheduled regular meeting with them. For example, if I've been working on the software project or whatever Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday or whatever days I'm working on that project, at the end of that week, I will write up a quick list of the things I've worked on that week and the progress that I've made and send it to them in an email and then ask for them to come up with any questions they have and to save those questions for the next meeting. And now the meetings with the client, depending on how many hours they are hiring me for and the scope of the project, I generally like meetings to be every week or every 2 weeks. And I like those meetings to be near the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So they can go over the progress from last week, ask any questions they have of me, and then if they have any feedback or if they think something isn't quite the way they wanted it, they can go ahead and let me know, and then I will be able to work on it for the rest of that week to make sure I am on target with the project and with their expectations. Now, I am kind of shy and I am not someone who naturally communicates very easily. So this is somewhere where I have really had to go out of my way to ask myself, hey, have I communicated with the client this week? What could I do better? Is the client aware of these things that have come up in the project? Am I communicating correctly? All of these things. And that's where my weekly review really comes in handy. when I not only assess my personal projects and all the things going on in my personal life and where I'm at with all of those, but I also look at all of the client projects that I have and where I am at with those client projects and make sure that I am not missing anything and that everything has been well communicated to the client, to the project manager, to whoever I need to get in touch with for that client. Now, some other advice I have for you if you're going into consulting is to be extremely detailed and thorough when you are considering taking a project. Go ahead and sign an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement with the client and get as much information about the project as you possibly can. If there are other developers involved, then try to meet with them, not just once, but multiple times if you can. Get information from them. Study the documents that you are given, all of the information about the project, any mock-ups or diagrams that you have for how the project is going to work. Make lists of questions and either send them to the client via email or even better, ask the questions in person. Which leads me to my next recommendation, which is to make sure that you meet with the client and the people that you are going to be working with at least a few times. Most problems with projects are either from poor planning or from conflicts among team members and people that are having to work together. So the best ways to prevent that are by being very, very thorough at the beginning, making sure you understand expectations of the project, what your specific role on the project is going to be, any responsibilities that you have, and all the other information concerning the project and what you are going to be doing. And then second, making sure you meet with the people multiple times. If in-person meetings aren't possible, such as now during this pandemic, then make sure you meet with them online with the camera on so you can see each other, communicate face to face, even virtually, and get to know each other a little bit before you start working together. Most problems at software companies aren't software problems, they're people problems. If you can avoid or prevent, even better, all of the people problems, then that's the best case scenario because you can figure out, solve any kind of other software problem. Now, my last recommendation is to make sure that the client is someone that you are going to want to work with. After consulting for several years now, I have seen many different types of clients, and I've noticed some patterns in the types of clients that I want to work with versus those that I really don't want to work with. A couple things to kind of watch out for in the beginning are a lack of understanding on the client's part about the project that they are wanting you to build. If they can't answer basic questions that come up about the project and the direction of the project, or if they get frustrated that you are asking questions, or if they think that you are asking too many questions, or if they start getting rude in their communication, then they are probably not going to be a good client for you to work with in the end. And I know sometimes it's hard to turn down the money or a project if you need experience, but if you work with a nightmare client who ends up not liking your work anyway, no matter how good your work is, then it didn't do anything for your career or help you in the long run anyway. You could have used that time finding a better client who would have appreciated your talents more than that first client. So, good clients, bad clients, I could probably make a whole video about that too. But for today, those are all my tips and recommendations for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something. And if you're thinking about consulting, or if you are already consulting, you started consulting and you have more recommendations, then I would love to hear about your experience and your recommendations in the comments below. If you like this video, then be sure to subscribe to my channel for more programming videos like this and on other related topics. And also check out my Twitch channel where I do actual coding live streams on Code Wars and on Python and JavaScript topics. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next video.